Here's the thing. You can know somebody and not really know them. And the same thing is true for you. You can hang out with people and still not have a ton of people who know the real you or get you. For example, have you ever dealt with something or felt something and you simply decided to keep it to yourself because you didn't think other people would understand? Or you did share it and you felt like the people you talked to were like drawing a blank. For most of us, our friends are probably the people who get us the most. And some of you may say that you have a bestie who totally gets you. That's awesome, but it's probably not a lot of more people than that, is it? Here is a stat I made up, but I think it's true. The majority of people don't feel like there's anyone who gets us 100%. A lot of times we share parts of our lives with different people. The parts of our lives that we feel like they will get. For example, we have friends that we go deep with, but some friends we only laugh and have fun with because they wouldn't get all the deep stuff. And then we have people that we hang out with, but we don't talk about sports with. It seems like they have no interest in sports, so they wouldn't get it. Or maybe it's that there are people who know you like sports, and then there is some people who know that your grandfather taught you some sport and taught you everything that you know about that sport. And then we have people in our small group of people, either in church or around school, that we can talk about our faith with. But we don't talk about our faith with certain people elsewhere. And this is totally normal, but sometimes it would be nice if more people just understood us. All our quirks, interests, struggles and fears. But instead, most of the time we feel like nobody like gets us. And you know who else feels that way? Literally everybody. Almost everybody. The truth is that nobody gets me or nobody knows the real me. Feeling isn't easy. It's one of the reasons this idea of personal matters so much. Because whether you knew this or not, you are actually wired to be known. You were made to have somebody who gets you, understands you, and knows what your real world is like. And this, my friends, brings us back to a guy named Zacchaeus. Last week we started talking about this encounter Jesus had with a man named Zacchaeus. In the section of the Bible called the New Testament, there are eyewitnesses accounts from people who knew Jesus personally. Those are called the Gospels. There are 4 of them and they all come from different perspectives. They didn't all share the same stories. Sometimes they were writing to different people, which affected which details they included. Here's what I mean. The Gospel of Luke is the only Gospel that tells the story of Zacchaeus, and there is a reason for that. Luke was writing to a mostly not Jewish audience. The first followers of Jesus were Jewish, so they kind of figured that everyone who followed Jesus would have been Jewish, but that's not the way Jesus operated. He was for anyone from any background, so it was natural for the not Jewish people to feel like they didn't quite fit in. So in Luke's Gospel, there are a lot of stories about people who didn't feel like they fit in. It's easy to imagine that these are the people Luke wrote about, because these are the people Luke wrote to. He wanted his readers to see how Jesus treated people like them. So Luke shares the story of Zacchaeus, who, like we learned last week, was on the outside of the group. He was a Jewish tax collector, which was a super bad thing to be at that time. And the short version he was a sellout and a traitor. But then Jesus comes to town and everyone is dying to see him. By this point, Jesus was way famous and people wanted to know, is he like the rumors say he is? Is he really healing people and performing miracles? People are like dying to see that. Is he really challenging the powers in charge? Everyone wanted to see what Jesus was like, and Zacchaeus obviously was no different. So he shows up. To get a better view of Jesus, Zacchaeus climbs a tree. He was short, so getting a higher view helped. But also, imagine Zacchaeus wasn't sure how Jesus would feel about a guy like him, a guy who collected taxes for the Romans and probably a little extra to keep for himself. Jesus looked out for the poor and mistreated people, and nobody was better at mistreating them or making them poor than Zacchaeus. So I imagine he wasn't looking to stand out, But then the craziest thing happens. Jesus looks up, sees him, calls out to him, and then invites himself over to Zacchaeus' house for dinner. Luke tells us the story in this way. When Jesus reached this spot, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today. It's in Luke 19:5. We hear that and think, okay, that's a little bold. Cook me dinner. I'm coming over with no warning. But in the context of this culture, it was an honor to host someone for dinner. Having someone in your home sent a message of friendship, of family. So Zacchaeus wasn't sitting in the tree thinking Jesus was rude for inviting himself over. He was most likely sitting in a tree thinking, I can't believe Jesus would want to have dinner with me at all. And he announced it loud enough for everyone, in the crowd to hear. In fact, Luke writes, so he, Zacchaeus, came down at once and welcomed him, Jesus, gladly. Luke 19:6. So why did Jesus invite himself over? Because Jesus cared about what Zacchaeus cared about. And even though it didn't seem like it on the outside, Zacchaeus cared about belonging, being accepted, being seen, and being known. How do I know that? Because he was a human, and we literally all want that. And we want it more when we feel like, like Zacchaeus, that we don't belong anywhere. Zacchaeus lived his life as an outsider. As a Jewish man, he didn't fit in with the Romans, even though he worked for them, and he didn't fit in with his Jewish neighbors because he taxed them on behalf of the Roman government. See, Zacchaeus wasn't just climbing a tree to see Jesus. He was climbing a tree to see if he mattered to Jesus and to see if Jesus knew what mattered to him. And don't miss this. It surprises everyone. People didn't expect a friendship to form between Jesus and the local outcast. They liked Jesus and wanted to be around him, and they didn't want to be around Zacchaeus. In fact, they all probably thought that they already knew everything they needed to know about Zacchaeus. As a tax collector, they knew exactly what he was like, and they didn't want to be associated with him. But not Jesus. Jesus knew that just because Zacchaeus had the label of tax collector, it didn't tell the whole story about who he was. It turns out Jesus knew Zacchaeus better than anyone around him did. Jesus understood Zacchaeus was just a person who wanted to belong. And Jesus went over to his place to show him that he did. If you ever wondered what Jesus thinks about you, the story of Zacchaeus hopefully is an encouragement. But maybe you've always felt like there were certain things that mattered to Jesus. For example, maybe you thought Jesus cared about your Bible reading but not your grades, praying but not your friendships, holy stuff but not real life stuff, your cussing but not your anxiety, your obedience but not your relationship with your dad, your sexual purity but not your dating relationships. Today, I want you to know that things that matter to you matter to him. The things that interest you interest him. He doesn't just know that you love rugby or this band or that band, but he gets why. He gets you personally. Think of it this way. It's personal because Jesus knows what matters to you. I don't know about you, but that was not the image of Jesus I grew up with. That's not what I thought he was like. The personal Jesus surprised Zacchaeus and definitely shocked the people around Zacchaeus. And chances are, there are a lot of people around you every day who would never guess that Jesus is so interested in them personally. That's why this week I want to challenge you to try both of these ideas. Idea number one, talk to Jesus about what matters to you. Jesus cares about what you care about. So start there. Pray about it. Share it with him. Let him know about the things that you like. Let him know the things you worry about. Tell him the things that bring you life and the things that drain you. Jesus is never bored hearing from you and about you because it's personal to him. And idea number two, talk to others about what interests them. When it came to Zacchaeus, it wasn't personal for the crowd he was in. They made assumptions about Zacchaeus, but they didn't really know him or get him. Jesus was the only one who knew that what really mattered to Zacchaeus was a sense of belonging. It's possible there are people you've made assumptions about you, people who you think are one way because of what you've believed about them, but you've never made it personal. Maybe this week you can make it personal by being intentional and discovering the things others like. Let go of the ideas you've had about them and do for someone what Jesus did for Zacchaeus. In his letter to the church in Philippi, the Apostle Paul writes about this very idea. He says this, rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of the others. Philippians 2, 3 and 4. Look out for the interests of others, which might mean you ask your friends questions. I'm horrible for that, okay? But let's do this and listen to their answers. You play something that your little brother loves to play. You go watch your friend play their sport, even if you have no clue what's going on. That would be me for cricket. You make an effort to include that kid who is a grade younger than you. You get to know someone who's different than you. From there, Paul goes on to talk about the character of Jesus and what Jesus was like. Paul said, make Jesus the model, because that's exactly what Jesus was like. He was selfless. He looked out for the interest of others. And we should do the same thing. This is what makes us stand out as people who actually follow him. Everybody needs somebody who knows their name and knows them personally. But I want you to think about something this week. Do you know what matters to the people you know? Really? Have you taken the time to be personal enough and try and get them? When we take the time to make it personal with others, we're living like Jesus. Jesus was never satisfied by making a judgment about a person from far away. He got close, he took time, and he never let a label or an assumption inform his opinion. He cared about what mattered to others because they mattered to him. It's personal because Jesus knows what matters to you. Now you have the chance to go and do the same for others. Challenge accepted, right? Blessings.